Hi, this video is going to show you how to do a grinder calibration on the Vitro X5 machine. There's 3 items you're going to need to do this test. 1 is a cup or a vessel to be able to catch the coffee. 2 is a set of gram scales to weigh the coffee that you're grinding. And 3 is either a Phillips head screwdriver or a drill with a Phillips head drill bit. To do the grinder calibration, we're going to open the machine's door. On the inside of the machine, the first thing we need to do is remove the metal chute that leaves you between the grinder and the brew mechanism. You'll note on the right and the left hand side there is a screw. Those 2 screws need to be removed. Once those 2 screws are removed, the chute will come off and then we can set it to one side. On the rear side of the door now there is a remote. I'm going to remove that remote. This now allows me to access the programming modes and do my grinder calibration. The remote has 4 buttons, A, B, C, D. A is your up, B is your down, C both enters the programming, exits the programming and works as a cancel function, and D is your enter button. So I will press the C for Charlie to enter inside the programming mode. If there is any errors on the screen, the machine will show those. By pressing C, it will clear the errors. Once you've cleared all errors, the machine now will start you at 010 listing. I will now use the A to go up till I see the 030 test machine function, and D will enter me in. The first heading I will see is extractors. I will keep pressing the A key to scroll up until I find coffee bean grinder. At this point now, I will introduce coffee beans into both bean hoppers, and I will enter in with D. It will always jump me to grinder number 1, which is my left-hand grinder. I could roll up with A to grinder number 2 being my right-hand grinder. But to start with, by pressing A, I'll go back to grinder number 1 to calibrate the left-hand grinder. I will take my cup and put it underneath the outlet of the grinder. I'm going to be pressing D to activate the grinder. I'll count to 5, then I'll press C to cancel the grinder. By doing this, it's going to purge the old coffee out that was inside the grinder when it was tested from manufacturing. So D activates the grinder. I count to 5, and I press C to cancel that grinder. That coffee you receive, simply discard. The machine's front screen is now going to be asking you to replace the coffee group and press D. We will simply press D. Now we can go through the full 10-second calibration test. Take your gram scales and a cup. Zero the cup on the gram scales. Now when we place our cup under the grinder, I enter in, I choose my grinder 1. When I press D, the grinder runs continuously for 10 seconds and turns off automatically on its own. Catching the coffee, I'll now weigh it, and I receive 26.9 grams. So in this case, I will roll myself up to 27 grams of coffee. So I can now input that 27 grams onto the machine screen. It's now asking me the weight on the front with that first 0 blinking. My D accepts and steps me across to the next number. The number 2 is correct, so I can press D to accept to the last number. And now I can use my A button to scroll up from a 24 to a 27 grams. D accepts. The next heading is consumption control, which says no. No is always the correct answer as default, so I hit D to accept this. It now asks me to replace the coffee group. I can press D. That is my grinder calibration set for the left hand of the 2 grinders. However, with an espresso style of grind, what we're ultimately looking for is coffee ground between 25 and 28 grams inside that 10-second test. I was at 27, so I'm okay. If I was over the 28 grams and needed to reduce the amount of coffee, there is a grind handle to the right-hand side of both grinders. I would turn my grind handle clockwise to reduce the blades, bringing them closer together, decreasing this number. Or if my number was under 25 and I had to increase, I would turn this handle counterclockwise to open the blades up, ultimately increasing the amount of coffee. One thing to please note is as you are manipulating and adjusting this grinder handle, there is a clear cap mounted here on the top side of the grinder, which houses our optical bean sensor. As I'm rotating my grind handle, the bean sensor on the rear side will probably interfere with the geared wheel, so I would always err you to push this clear cap as far to the right hand side as possible if you're turning the grinder clockwise, or as far to the left hand side if you're turning the grinder handle counterclockwise. Once you've done this, you will now need to go back into the programming and do that 5-second purge test of coffee before you do another 10-second calibration to give you a correct reading. Once you've done the left hand side grinder, you will enter back into that grinder calibration, choosing grinder number 2, and then ultimately taking the secondary grinder, following that same process out as we've done for the left hand side. Once that is complete, we can now take our coffee funnel, reinsert it, and then reattach to the machine, putting the right and the left hand side screws back into position. Once that is now complete, we can cancel out the programming using C if the machine has not already cancelled out. Close the door and then make some selections, choosing from both sides of both grinders. Checking that you're getting the desired drink quality, timing, etc. that you're looking for. If not, undertake another calibration test. If you find you have any issues whilst doing this, please feel free to contact the Escorian technical support team.